Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We are back today and we are here to talk about Peacemaker again. We talked about Peacemaker a couple of days ago and we were really just talking about more in the context of James Gunn is directing 3 episodes of season 2, or I guess it's the new season of Peacemaker because it's the first season in the DCU. He did clarify that, there's going to be only minor differences between the previous iteration of Peacemaker and the one we're going to see in the DCU, what those minor iterations look like. We have speculated in the past based on some set photos and maybe if the costume's going to be any different, stuff like that. We'll get into it. We'll hopefully we'll find out more about it over time. Any kind of set photos that come out, we will take a look at those. But today we're going to be discussing how John Cena has basically put out there that he's expecting the show to come out next year in 2025. And what does that entail? Why does he think that? There was an interview, I believe, that he was a part of, and he was asked this question. So we're going to get into that. Before we dive into that, I did want to shout out again, Fiona. Thanks so much for lending me your studio, this beautiful studio, all her amazing artwork. Go check it out at FionaC.NYC. She does not sponsor the show, but I do like to, give credit where credit is due, using her digs here. But John, you are using your usual digs. You are
Yes, just my
according to some
bedroom.
people in the basement, but it's
Not a
above
basement.
ground as far as we
I
are
am on the
aware.
second floor. I do.
Um,
I got upgraded, so I got upgraded to first
it's
class. Here
it's
we are.
one hell of an upgrade. So how are you doing today?
I'm very tired. I like no matter. I feel like no matter how much sleep I get, I'm just always gonna be tired. That's just the nature of being an adult. So hey, kiddos, if you're watching this, don't anticipate being adult. Please take advantage as much as you can of being a child, because it only gets worse from there. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, enough with the downer future stuff. Especially how this world is going. Like it just got pollution and civil wars and all that shit. Yeah. So just take advantage of being a kid, not having to worry about the world, not having to be tired every waking second. So take advantage of it, guys. That's that's
It's
uh
yeah.
that's my advice from me.
It's hey, look. At the end of the day, we all need some sleep. And as somebody who has worked with very little sleep on many an occasion, I can definitely tell you that it adds up over time. So, John, please do get your rest when you can. But for the time being, we're gonna dive into it. Let's talk about Peacemaker season 2. I'm still trying to figure out whether they're gonna call it season 2 or I don't know, like Peacemaker Born Again or whatever, or the new Peacemaker or the Peacemaker.
That I would
But John,
love the Peacemaker. The
the
Peacemaker would
Peacemaker.
be so fucking funny. Like I hope that they do that. Like cuz it's like there's no other way you could do it cuz the thing is there's no other way you could do it at least like kind of seriously but also like kind of funny cuz you could do like
Mhm.
un like a lot of people were anticipating like Deadpool 2 being called Untitled Deadpool sequel and because that would have been really funny. And then, but like with this, you can't really do Untitled Peacemaker show because it's already called Peacemaker. So I don't know. I just think it would be so funny. It would be so funny just to have them be like Peacemaker, but now the new season and from now on, it's the Peacemaker. I mean, there's been rebrands. Like for instance, the Orville season 3 was called the Orville New Horizons. So it's not like totally out of nowhere to
Yeah,
like call it like the new season, like something
yeah.
totally different. So I
Which
would say,
it's a lot
you
of times.
know,
Yeah,
they got to make it
yeah.
a joke too. They got to make it a joke. It just makes and having it
Right.
the Peacemaker would be
Yeah.
just beautiful.
Okay, this is pretty dark and probably offensive in many ways, but I was just when I was making the graphic, I typed in Peacemaker, but I misspelled it and I didn't put in the E after the P. And so it says pacemaker. And I was just like, that would be the kind of joke that they might have somewhere in the show where like they just go by a sign or the show's sign, like, it says peacemaker, but then the E just there's like a neon sign, then the E drops off, and then it's just pacemaker, which I just thought that was kind of like an opportunity that if it would be on brand for certainly this show. But
Yeah.
anyway, speaking of the show itself, John Cena recently had an interview with the director. It looks like, and he was being asked about it. He's like, "What is going on? You're filming this show? Where are the things headed with this?" I think it was not really for Peacemaker that he was doing the interview, he's been promoting, I think, this new movie Jackpot that's coming out on Amazon Prime. I
Yes,
think it's this week, right? So it had its
maybe.
premiere, red carpet premiere at the TCL Chinese Theater in LA, where the famously Star Wars premiered back in the day in 1978. I forget when the first Star Wars premiered, but or whenever the first I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
1978.
yeah. Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah, the same year as Superman. That there's a DC connection there. But yeah, so John Cena was, of course, asked by press, I'm sure, many questions, amongst which the direct, one of their journalists, they asked him, is there any new information that you have on the show, like on Peacemaker Season 2? Like, you've been filming it. When is this thing coming out? And John Cena basically said, I'm hopeful in saying next year. And that's about the only Peacemaker question I can answer,
yeah.
which is fair. I mean, they've been pretty tight-lipped about this. And yeah, I think in the past when James Gunn's been asked about this, like where does this fit into the larger timeline? James Gunn has been pretty adamant that this definitely takes place squarely after the Superman movie. So John, what do you think about the idea of, like, they are filming it now?
Yes.
They already, of course, are in post-production on Superman. It's a TV show where, I mean, if you go by the first season, it's not going to be super VFX heavy. There's going to be VFX heavy episodes, but you can definitely
Right.
do an episode or two where you're not going to dive super deep into the VFX side of things. So, do you think that 2025, A, is a reasonable time to expect the show to come out? Do you think this might suffer a delay of some kind? And then B, I do wonder, what time of year it's going to come out, because if the events take place after Superman, does that automatically mean this is going to be a fall release like the first season was, or is it possible that they kind of try to pack it into the summer months, so Superman comes out and, let's say, a month later Peacemaker releases, and they're like, let's kind of capitalize on that momentum? So what do you think
Right.
about both of those questions there?
I think that would be kind of like real, because the thing is, I'm kind of, I don't know how to word this, but like I'm kind of stuck in the middle, I guess, between like, okay, build the universe as much as you can, but also don't have people get superhero fatigue. So it's like, I don't want, like, this was kind of in terms of the movie universe, this was kind of a good year. If we ignore like animated movies and like TV shows, because those were really heavy this year in terms of at least DC. Um, with with the movie universe, it's like, oh, okay, cool. We're not going crazy. It's just one movie per company. We just have Joker Full AD, and we've already gotten Deadpool and Wolverine. And so it kind of got a bit of a break, but with everything going on, it's like a bit much. So, like, as much as I want, like, oh, I want like 5 movies a year and then 3 shows a year to really build the universe, but it's also like, I don't want people to like get sick of this so quickly, you know? I don't want people getting like super, 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 super sick of it, because the last thing we want is like, okay, this barely gets out the door, and then oh, we already don't want to see this anymore. So I think, personally, I think you should like I think that's a good, like, because the only thing that's coming out next year is Superman and kind of Creature Commandos. Because if we're getting like 8 to 10 episodes of Creature Commandos in December, the most you can do is like 4 or 5. You're gonna have to be,
Right. It's
having a
going to be in
couple. It's
2025,
gonna
right?
be, some of them are gonna be in
Yeah.
2025. But like if you're counting the
Yeah.
starting point, it's not. So the only things you're really getting from a starting point is Superman in July, and that's it. So it seems like Peacemaker is going to come out most definitely in the fall. That makes the most sense, because again, building the universe, and it's a good thing to fall back on because people know Peacemaker. Obviously, people know
Hmm.
fucking Superman. Of course, like people know Superman, but I mean, like, in terms of this iteration, even though it is like a slightly different version, and it's like the DCU version versus the DCEU version, then there's obviously some separate, but people are more familiar. So if like Superman doesn't do as well as they think, well, they can like kind of like fall back on Peacemaker. Like, I don't know how much money these things make and all that shit, but Peacemaker was the first season was really popular when it came out. So I feel like that's kind of like a good thing. It's like, again, TV show, movie. I think that's a good. At the most, you should do like 2 movies and then a TV show per year. I feel like that's a good like plan to
Well, I
have.
mean, originally when they announced the slate, right? Like this is now almost 2 years ago. James Gunn and Peter Safran, they mentioned that their goal is eventually to have 2 shows and 2 movies a year.
Yeah, I feel like
And
that's a
it seems
good
like,
good plan to have.
yeah, yeah, and considering where they're at now with production on the number of projects and what we've sort of got on the calendar, we've got like three. We really have, I mean, as far as the DCU is concerned, we only have 3 projects that are dated. That's Superman, which is coming out in next, year in 2025. Supergirl, which is coming out in 2026, and then we have got a date for Creature Commandos, the very first project, an animated series coming out later this year. Beyond that, all of these other projects, greenlit or not, like we don't know what the dates are. But if you go by the fact that
Yeah.
January of what was it, like 2-3 years ago, that Peacemaker came out, the first season, it's I would imagine that if they're almost they've been filming it now for months, so they can't be just like uh, I would think they're most of the way done filming this series. It's the only 8 episodes, and especially if all they were waiting for was James Gunn to free up and then finish filming his episodes, the 3 that he's directing. My guess is that this show will be in the can by the end of the summer, and then
Yeah.
all you have to worry about is post production. and
Right.
and post production, well, of course, is key, and is the VFX have to be top notch. It's an HBO show at the end of the day. um they could make this, meet if they wanted to. They can release it late next summer. Like, do you think August would make sense? Oh, like you said, would you prefer it to be like, let's spread it out a little bit? Because if you if you get this out the way before we even get to September, October, then
Mhm.
we're in a situation where the next DCU project is Supergirl, which is July of 2026. So then people are just waiting for seven
I
months
don't
for
think that'll
nothing
be the
almost, unless we
case.
get another TV show.
I think because the thing
Why
is
would you think so?
Lanterns is greenlit. So
Yeah,
I think that should be
right.
coming out in early 2026, because the thing is, we've already gotten some like leeway. They've already have the writers that are writing it. So that's probably going to take a bit. They're probably going to be casting soon, sometime in the fall, late, like I would say late fall, early winter. And so they're probably going to
Okay.
have the cast and I think everything by 2025. And then since that's, even though that's probably going to have like another 8 to 10 episodes, it's going to be way more effects heavy than Peacemaker because it's Green Lanterns. So if I were to
Yeah.
guess, that's probably, so we're probably going to get Peacemaker and Superman as sort of like the the real starting point. Like, I know Creature Commandos, but unfortunately people don't take animation very seriously, which is sad, but like that's the reality we have to live in right now. Um so the real start, you have Superman, and then you're gonna have Peace. I feel like you're gonna have Peacemaker and Fall, because he did confirm Peacemaker is most definitely coming out. The events of Peacemaker is gonna be after Superman, so that's definitely, so Superman's probably gonna come out in the summer, and either it's, so I would say Peacemaker is probably gonna come out late summer, early fall, so September to October. That's usually when the TV season starts, and then you're gonna have then I think you're gonna have Lanterns next in either early, I would say early 2026. I would say maybe spring, and then you're gonna have Supergirl, and then I think we're gonna get Waller also in 2026, because they did confirm that the events of Waller are gonna take place after Peacemaker, because James Gunn did say, oh, Waller was supposed to come out before Peacemaker, but due to the writer strikes, we couldn't get that out before Peacemaker, so that's going to now come out after Peacemaker. So I think that's going to come out late 2026. So that's like, and maybe some, and then considering the fact that Swamp Thing has had a writer and director since the beginning, again, this
Yeah.
is just a total guess for me. I think we're going to be getting Swamp Thing in 2026. That's the 2 movies and 2 shows we're getting. If that's the case, then 2 movies we're going to get, again, one Woman of Tomorrow is confirmed, most definitely confirmed. The rest is just how I'm kind of tracking it in terms of like common sense and a logic point of view. Swamp Thing, I think we're going to get in 2026 as well. And then we're also going to get Lantern, since that's just got greenlit. And Waller has been in a writing stage for a while, now that they're going back to it since the writer's strike has been over. So I think we're going to get Waller sometime in 2026 as well. That's just my guess for the next couple of years. I think after 2025, where they're introducing everything with Creature Commandos from 2024 to 2025, Superman in July, and then Peacemaker probably sometime in the fall. So that's going to be like our introduction, and then they're going to get to what they want to do: 2 movies, 2 shows, and my next guess is Swamp Thing. Woman of Tomorrow is the only thing that's definite, and then Lanterns and Waller is probably 2026. That's just my guess. I feel like that's a good logic timeline point of view, but that's my guess. That's my theory. That's the John theory of the episode. How I'm gonna, that's
Right.
that's how I'm gonna throw it out into the universe. And then if I'm right, I could tell you all I told you so. That's my favorite thing to do. Telling everyone I told you so. It brings me joy.
It would be pretty insane if at 2026 they reached that goal of 2 movies and 2,
Yeah.
TV shows year. Like, that's insane. That's a cadence that Marvel has struggled with, and they're like 15 years into their cinematic universe. But also, by the way, Lucario. Sorry, man, if I pronounce your name wrong, that's on me. But you mentioned in the chat that we are getting the Batman Part 2 in October of 2026 as well. So, I mean, if you're getting that, I would imagine they wouldn't want things to clash, right? Like, although they're not the same universe, but you don't want, 2 DC properties competing with each other. So, but it would be insane, dude. We would go from, I think, what I'm starting to get really excited about is, for the longest time we thought next year the only thing we were going to get is Superman. Especially with the Batman moving out of the up to 2026. But now we're starting to see that Peacemaker Season 2. I mean, and James Gunn, just working his ass off, right? Like, the guy works on 3 hours of sleep, if that. When you look at just the amount of hours he's putting into between post production on Superman and then filming Peacemaker. Rick Flag Sr. himself, Frank Grillo, he's just amazed that he's like, some people just have 48, 58 hours in a day. I think there was an article that I was looking at earlier where he was just, marveling at the idea, pardon the pun, of how much time, James Gunn is putting behind this, new DC universe, especially in the early stage where he can really, really just get his footprint all over the universe. And because, he's the creative lead here. Do you think, as just a sidebar question now, season 2 of Peacemaker, we know we're getting Terminator. What am I forgetting? T-1000. The actor.
Robert Patrick.
Played Robert Patrick. I was gonna say Patrick Stewart, and I was like, that is not correct. I know that is not correct. But Patrick, sorry, again, I was about to say Patrick Stewart. Robert Patrick is coming back, right? And he pretty firmly, his character has been put to rest, let's say, at the end of the first season. So, obviously he's either going to come back because the continuity is different, or there's some other means through which they're, having him come back, whether it's, through a flashback or whatever. So, Mike, I say that to Frank Grillo. Do you think Frank Grillo is only going to be in this show for one season? He's a villain of the season. He's got a couple of seasons, like his story.
Yeah, I think I think Frank Grillo is probably just gonna, like, where there's gonna be some revengeance going on with him, and then we're gonna kind of move on. Because I feel like he's already kind of like hero, anti-hero with Creature Commandos. Cool. Then he seems kind of like an antagonist, not a villain, an antagonist in Superman. And then he seems kind of more like antagonist villain in Peacemaker. So he's running the gamut of like every possible thing you can do. So I feel like he'll probably just be the villain, antagonist, the antagonist. I don't know if they're gonna say villain specifically because he's not, because Rick Flag, neither senior nor junior are really villains. So if I were to take a guess, I think he's gonna be the antagonist for season 2, and then he's just gonna kind of stick to Creature Commandos for a while, unless like something they pull a Batman versus Superman. He's like, wait a minute, Peacemaker, your mom's name was Martha. My mom's name was Martha too. Let's be best friends now. And then they're gonna just pull that, and then he's just gonna be a good guy with
Oh
Peacemaker
man.
at the end of the season. So I think that could be a fun time. You know what? That could be a really good show, a really good joke.
Martha, Martha,
Like
Martha.
I'm Rick Flag. I'm Rick Flag, son of blah 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 Flag, and like I don't know Rachel Flag, and then Peacemaker be like, wait. Your mom's name was Rachel? Mine was Rachel too. And he's like, really? Bam! And then he just punches him again. He's like, I don't give a fuck. And then they just have a fight or something. That
Dude,
would be really funny.
if you want to
I
get the
mean,
attention of the
Teen
internet,
Titans
they need to
Go
do that.
did already kind of make fun of Teen Titans Go to the movies already kind of made fun of that. But
But they also had Zack Snyder like on an episode, so I'm like, I think they played it both sides really well in terms of
oh
like
yeah,
addressing it, but then being very
yeah,
meta about it.
yeah.
So,
Um, but
uh,
I do think that would be really funny if they do like kind of pull
that's
that.
that's straight up like out of a Screen Junkies episode or something, like how this should have ended, right?
Don't
Like
give
that.
Screen Junkies that much credit.
I'm okay. I'm just saying that's where I feel like I remembered it. O'Shea had a nice comment here I wanted to kind of put up on screen just to discuss for a second. But by the way, like we do know from that one actor who posted accidentally tagging Joel Kinnaman, thanking him alongside everybody else for being a part of the
Mm-hmm.
show. I mean, Rick Flag Sr. is definitely in the show, but maybe Rick Flag Jr. is making some kind of appearance. But hey, O'Shea Goodman, you mentioned maybe his character will also be like a liaison between Creature Commandos. And I assume when you say his, you mean Frank Grillo's character, Rick Flag Sr., will sort of be a liaison between Creature Commandos and connecting, the dots between the animated show, Superman the movie, and of course Peacemaker the TV show. And then afterwards, he will be showing up as in an authority, as like a government sponsored agent. Okay, all right. I mean, I don't think I get the whole concept. I think you meant to say agent with the engineer. Right. So, John, do you think that Frank Grillo has signed on for a much bigger role in the DCU than we've been led on to believe up to this point?
I think so. I think I wouldn't be totally against that because I remember a lot of people wanted him for a lot of different roles. Because I think Frank Grillo is a very versatile kind of actor. Like I mean, yeah, he kind of has the niche of like gritty, like no nonsense kind of guy, but that kind of fits like a lot of different characters is kind of what I was saying. So I remember a lot of people back when they were trying to get Punisher for the Netflix shows, they wanted Frank Grillo as Punisher, who, by the way, would be excellent. But John Bernthal did an excellent job, and I can't wait to, I'm happy that he's getting. I'm not going to watch Daredevil Born Again, but I'm happy he's coming back, and they'll actually have him be proper Punisher rather than Punisher with super soakers because Disney. But I think Frank Grillo might be like
Okay.
because I know I mean we can't have blood, we can't have bullets, guys. Fucking
I'm
Disney.
just
Anyway, um, but yeah, I think it would be really interesting for him to kind of be the Nick Fury rather than Waller because she's a villain. Like I know people, no, she's a fucking villain. She's a horrible. Because that's like the whole thing is like she's the real monster. Like she's the monster while the Suicide Squad and I guess also the Creature Commandos they're not the actual monster. She's like the worst monster of them all. That's like the whole basis of like Amanda Waller as a character. She's the wall. You don't fuck with the wall. And so like that's kind of what I've liked that they're treating her like a villain because that's what she is. So I think with that we might have Rick Flag Sr. kind of be more than Nick Fury because Yeah, he might be like kind of like threading the line, but that's kind of what Nick Fury was a little bit. Like he wasn't like a total good guy, but he also wasn't like he wasn't really an anti. I think he was like kind of in between a hero and an anti. He wouldn't go so anti-hero because of like his morals. Like for instance, like in the first Avengers movie where he like fucking nuked the plane that was gonna nuke. He shot a rocket launcher at the plane that was gonna nuke New York, and
Mm-hmm.
so like obviously he has like proper morals, but like he can like kind of bend those morals, but I still feel like he's more a hero. And I feel like that's what Rick Flag Sr. is gonna be. And like he's gonna kind of, he's gonna be a hero with morals. He's gonna be like the good guy on the bad guy team, kind of like what Bronze Tiger was in the comics, and kind of like what Idris Elba was Bloodsport slash
Right. In
Deadshot
the
and
Suicide
all of
Squad.
that.
Right.
Even
Right.
though he wasn't like a good guy, it was like because that's what was interesting about the
Right.
Suicide Squad comics is I was
Mm-hmm.
praying that Idris Elba was going to be Bronze Tiger because that was so he was a guy that got wrongfully like
Mm-hmm.
he got wrongfully arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and then he's forced, and the way he has to like get out of this whole like bullshit is to like be on a team of bad guys that he's fought against for years. So I think that that's like just innately interesting, and I'm sad they didn't go with that with the Suicide Squad. But like I feel like they can kind of do that with Creature Commandos a little bit, where like Rick Flag, even though he's the head of the team, I feel like they can kind of do that here. Hopefully, I know Rick Flag Jr. was like kind of like that in Suicide Squad and the Suicide Squad, but not nearly as much. I still feel like he was
Well,
just
in the Suicide Squad, he's sort of it's almost as if they wanted to get rid of him, but they couldn't. Like that's the way I felt because he was part of the first movie. So I
yeah.
don't know.
So like
It
he was
felt
kind of like,
wayward.
and he was kind of milk toast in those movies a little bit. I don't want to shit on Joel Kinnaman. Joel Kinnaman's a very good actor. He
He's a
he is
great actor, dude.
he's
Yeah.
surprised me more. He kind of started because the thing is, I think like the first major thing I saw him was Suicide Squad, and I'm like, this guy fucking sucks. And then I saw like other stuff, like he was in that movie with Liam Neeson. I think it was Run All Night. He was really good
Oh,
in that. That was good. Like it was
yeah.
kind
It
of a
was
forgettable
wasn't it?
action movie, but he was good in that. I liked that movie.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it was like a Hong Kong action. What's the name of the famous director? Anyway, like, but I know what you're talking about. Silent Night
yeah.
is the name of the movie.
No,
Yeah.
not Silent Night. Run All
Oh,
Night. Run All
Run.
Night.
Oh, okay,
It
okay.
was with Liam Neeson.
Not the John Woo movie. Okay.
Liam Neeson was like his dad, and they had like an estranged relationship, but like he gets accused of a crime he didn't commit, and then like he has to team up with his dad to stop the threat. It was a very well done movie. I thought it was like a good action movie, not like the greatest, but it was like a very good action movie.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that was good. So like he's impressed me more and more, and I feel like he was a lot better in the Suicide Squad, but still I feel like here like try to like and especially with when you have an even older character with Rick Flag Sr. is like more
I don't
I
know
feel
how
like
they're gonna.
I
Yeah.
feel like you can like have like a more traditional hero type of vibe with that character. Like he's like that old school traditional soldier heroic kind of guy, and I feel like they can do that very very well. So I hope that they go into line with more of like what Bronze Tiger is in the comics. I just think that that's just a really interesting idea that they haven't done yet. So I hope they kind of do that here and then showcasing as well that Rick Flag Sr. is like kind of like seems to be more Nick Fury than Amanda Waller. So I hope that's what they're going for, at least with all these projects that Frank
Yeah.
Grillo is going to be a part of.
I mean, it's insane. Like the fact that he's signed on for the first. He's gonna have on screen about as much influence on the events of the DCU early on as James Gunn seemingly has behind the scenes. In terms of like the one constant, right? Like we've been talking about how Amanda Waller seems to be everywhere, and I think she was toward the end of the DCEU, and it seems like she's gonna be is still pulling the strings behind the scenes, but Rick Flag Senior is, he's going to be the one you'll get to see across all of these projects. I mean, maybe who knows? Maybe he'll make a cameo in Supergirl as well, and I'm sure we're going to see him in Waller, considering his connections to of course, Creature Commandos and all the secrets hit squads, I guess, that
Yeah.
Amanda Waller's putting together of villains. But yeah, there was this mystery character that was, I think. Well, I wanted to kind of quickly discuss this.
Yeah.
I think this is an older story, John. But what are your thoughts on David Denham? He joined the show a while ago, and there
Yes.
was this mystery character that was being there was a casting call put out for it,
Yeah.
and people were
DCU
trying to figure out
leaked it, and
like,
yeah,
does it match the description? Do you think like I mean, David Denham is a tall, big dude, like, and in terms of
yeah,
the
he's a
character
big
description for this
odd
Red
dude.
Saint Wild,
Yeah.
yes. Um, do you feel like he fits the description for that mystery character they were looking for? It looks like he's not going to be a regular part of the show, but he's gonna have like a recurring role.
Um. So I think. Well, I mean, if he's already set to play this like Larry character, then like it doesn't make sense that he's going to be cast as another character. Like
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, I think this is a very weirdly written article because
Yeah. It's
if we're
purposefully
going by
deception.
if we're
Yeah.
going by what we've already gotten, David Denman is cast. Why are they like speculating that it's like, oh no, he's going to be cast as this guy? It's like, well, okay, which one is it going to be? So I think he's playing this Larry. It would be funny if like it'd be really cool since again more comedy potential, like because Vigilante's kind of like a in this iteration, he's like kind of like a even though he's like very good at what he does, he's like still kind of like a wimpy like beta kind of guy. So I think it'd be really funny if like maybe Peacemaker becomes friends with this Larry character who's, looks like David Denman, who is big, broad, alpha looking dude. And they have like a pissing contest. So he's like, no, I'm Peacemaker's bestest friend in the whole wide world. Fuck you. And it's but then David Denman is just like chill. And he's not like and then David Denman's like Larry character is like not an asshole. He's just like, oh, that's cool, man. I'm glad you guys are best friends. And he's just like totally chill, and that just gets under his skin even more. I feel like that's like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
classic like trope
Yeah.
that's like been done a lot in like comedy stuff. So I feel like if they did that, that would be really funny if he's like gonna be this best friend character to
Hmm.
like Peacemaker as like Larry, just whether he's just like a friend or like he's actually like, like a hitman or a mercenary or something like that. So, yeah, I think that would be kind of fun. But in terms of Red Saint Wild, like if we're going past that point, if we're not like talking about David Denman being cast, the Red Saint Wild, I have or like the Hunter character. So I feel like that could be interesting. Like he's Adam Orion, who is connected to the Legion of Superheroes, which is definitely interesting because it wouldn't be the first time that James Gunn has used a Legion of Superheroes character in the present day that's almost next to nothing like that character except for like one specific, like because that's what TDK was, the detachable kid with
Hmm.
Nathan Fillion.
I mean,
And
and supposedly that character isn't dead yet.
yeah, so he's
Supposedly,
not dead. Not like it matters because the DCEU is fucking
the
dead.
DCU is dead.
So,
Yeah,
um,
he's still running around somewhere, detached and
he's
all this
still running
stuff.
around somewhere.
But yeah,
He's just armless. But yeah, so I wouldn't like
he's
that. That could be a
detached
good
from
theory. That could
reality.
be that could be a good theory that like that Red Saint Wild is this like Adam Orion character that's like kind of connected, but like not really. So I'm like, okay, that could be like kind of interesting. I don't think David Denman is playing him, but if it is the case, then cool. But yeah, it's nothing crazy. I think David Denman's a good addition. He's a good actor. He's worked with James Gunn a lot. So yeah, I think that would be kind of fun. Whether he is playing this Larry character, whether he is playing this Red Saint Wild character, and whether Red Saint Wild is like a changed version of Adam Orion from the comics, whatever it is, I'm open to like all these ideas. Like I still kind of I don't love the fact that Vigilante's like kind of this like wimpy little dude on like the comic version, but I feel like yeah, I'm open to whatever weird ideas they have because I feel like this is like James Gunn at his most James Gunness, where he's like
Hmm.
comedy director doing weird shit because that's what he loves to do and he's like good at. So No,
Yeah.
they should just no. They have to bring Nathan Fillion back. It has to only be Nathan Fillion, and then they meet up and they're like, "You look familiar, man." No, I think no, I don't think so. He's like, "No, you look familiar." Like
We need that Spider-Man meme to happen because clearly they'll be the same face. It's like
yeah.
I wonder
Oh,
what
it
it
would
looked
be
like
perfect.
with a bowl cut. Like now I know, like or something like that. You know, it's like it's. But yeah, hey, look. What the biggest question that I have at this point is
Mm,
what the second season of Peacemaker is gonna be about. I mean,
yeah.
kind of the same way the first season of Peacemaker to me was like, why like does this show exist? And then they told a great story about a character that
It
has
was
so
just
much more
fucking.
heart than we
Oh
thought
yeah,
she
no.
did.
There's an alien invasion of butterflies. All right, cool.
Right, but like ultimately it was based on the like fantastic character work and the characters that came out of Peacemaker the show. Clearly they've persevered through the death of the DCU into a new DCU. So I think people remember the show because of the characters, not necessarily because the story was the most memorable. But I still wonder, like, what is the central conflict? Why does season two of Peacemaker exist? Like that's I still would. But if season one is anything to go by, who the fuck cares? Like they'll probably come up with something. It's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be better than anything we could have ever imagined. And John Cena is affable and likable enough to pull off pretty much anything that you can ask him to do. Yeah. Liquid Gold. What is Kazoo? JB and Kazoo Rat are having the best of times in the chat. Guy Gardner, Hal Jordan, TDK. It's like who's. That's if Nathan Fillion gets to play Hal Jordan, which would be
Well, I mean, he
hilarious.
did voice Jordan in the Green Lantern animated series. So,
Yeah,
and I think he also did it in the DCAMU too. So, yeah. So he's
that,
played all
that's
three.
yeah.
Somebody needs to make that meme, guys. Make that meme. Do it. The internet loves it, so do it. Yeah, that would be funny.
It's possible that it happens, and if it does, then I mean James Gunn, power to you, my friend. Please make it happen. We do have a couple other things to get through here. I wanted to kind of circle back to a story from I believe this is from a while ago now, John. But
Mm,
we heard obviously when James Gunn presented his entire slate for the new DCU, one of the things that he presented was this new, you know, Paradise Lost series, which was going to
mhm.
be what did they describe it as? The Game of Thrones of DC, right? And so a while ago, this news story came out. I don't think we really gave it too much thought then, but I figured it's as good a time as any to discuss it. Um, it looks like Paradise Lost is in search of some writers, and they might be circling. So a couple of
Yeah.
potential writers to come on board. What are your thoughts on just the production timeline for this thing? Because James Gunn was recently asked about it, and he said no, it is not in production, and yet it is in development. It's not been greenlit yet. Nothing is in production until it's greenlit.
Right.
But obviously, before you greenlight a show, you need to have writers room. So my question to
You went. You muted yourself.
just speculation that these. Oh, I don't know. Where did you lose me? I'm sorry. My
I don't
question
know.
was
You were talking
basically,
about the writers. You're
what
like,
are you?
hey, before you greenlight anything, you got to have writers. And
Yeah,
you kind of ducked out a little
exactly.
bit.
Well, the point stands. What do you think about these two writers that I've got on screen here, but potentially as coming on board for the show?
Um, before I get into that, I do want to correct myself. He was not in Green Lantern the animated series, and he was not in the DCAMU. However, Nathan Fillion did voice Green Lantern Hal Jordan in the movie Green Lantern Emerald Knights, as well as some of the DCAMU, but not all of it. So, just want to he was in Justice League Doom, and then Flashpoint Paradox and Throne of Atlantis. Sorry, that was just gonna annoy me. Like if I didn't because then people in the comments, no, he didn't voice those. He did. So I just want to say I was wrong. I wanted to correct myself. Anyway, in terms of these writers, I'm not feeling it. Not gonna lie, I kind of not really feeling them. I think. So first of all, there's a person named Snyder. I am little
Hey, not
torn
all
against
Snyders are
another.
related. Just
I just a
like
little torn against another Snyder being part of DC. That's just a little. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But in terms of Kira Snyder, she was a writer and producer on Handmaid's Tale and The 100. Not, I never watched The 100. I heard it was like pretty good. I tried to watch Handmaid's Tale. I just felt it was just not good. I'm not gonna get into it because that's gonna be like very heavy political talk. So I'm not gonna get. I just personally just could not get into the show, and I just felt it was just a bit much. Um, so
It's a
then
fantastic show. It's won a ton of Emmys, and it's one
I
of the
know, I
best
know.
shows, in my opinion, of the last decade. So, but yes,
Um,
go, yeah.
but yeah, and then in terms of Janet Lynn, her writing credits are Bridgerton, Cursed, and Bones. Which again, it's a weird
But
choice. Like,
eh,
okay, maybe they're
it's
like
not what you would think off the top of your head.
not
Right.
the thing is, if I were to like imagine, I don't like okay, if I were to imagine anyone, like I might go into like a fan casting kind of thing, a little bit, just a little bit, just hear me out. But I think like get someone who like kind of has the vibe of like obviously I don't want anybody like Game of Thrones connected to this because I don't want to just be have it be just a Game of Thrones ripoff. I just feel like it's better than that. You know, if I were to get anybody, I would like to get someone like Michael Hurst, who did Vikings. Like, okay, he did Norse stuff really good. Let's bring him in for Greek and Roman stuff. I think that would be really cool because I feel like he and even though Vikings wasn't necessarily like mystical, I feel like getting someone who's like who at least knows their like who knows like mythology or someone who's like who did that very well, and Vikings did do that extremely well. I mean, my dad still goes on and on about how fucking amazing Vikings was, and it lasted like 7 seasons, so 7, 8 seasons. So it was a fucking you know great fucking show. So I feel like someone like not necessarily get him, but someone like that, like someone who just like can be at least kind of connected to like that vibe I feel like they're going for. Cause like I see their credits. Now, obviously they could be like super secret, like heavy duty Wonder Woman fans, and they're like, yes, please give us this
I mean,
show. We know we love the fucking, these Wonder Woman comics. Please give us this. So that could be the case. I don't want to totally denounce them, but and as well as the fact it's Nexus Point news, grain of salt. Let's bring out
grain
our
of
salt
salt,
level.
yes, definitely. It's
Biggest grain of salt you could
speculation,
possibly
and yeah.
imagine. But I just feel like the credits are like very different from like the vibe I get. Obviously, they could dip their toe into something a little bit more like not their wheelhouse to kind of practice, but I would like someone with a little bit more experience in like the vibe they're going for than the people here. But but if Nexus Point News is totally right about this, which I have a feeling they are not, um I feel like these women could be good in terms of the writers room, and obviously the like they might not be the executive producers, they might not be the showrunners, they just might be part of the writers room. So who knows? They might get a showrunner who's like, okay, I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan, and I'm also have like experience with like the vibe we're going for, like kind of like a war between like various factions, because that's what it mentions a little bit later in the article that the title of the series has similarities to the George Perez and Phil Jimenez story arc on Wonder Woman Paradise Island Lost, which is about a civil war on Themyscira, which could be really fucking cool. Although I think isn't that what House of the Dragon is about, so that might be a little bit much. And then but then you also have Wonder Woman Historia of the Amazons, which Gunn posted about in August of last year. So that is more along the line of like Paradise Lost, of like being an origin. Hippolyta is the main character and all of that. So that could be like the vibe. So who knows? Like obviously we're kind of getting this information like first things first, Nexus Point News is not a trustworthy news source. I will say that they're the ones behind
It's
Trust Me Bro. Trust Me Bro.
speculation
Jolo
still. Yeah,
Maraduena
trust
totally
me, bro.
said that Kumail Nanjiani is Booster Gold. Trust me, bro. We
Trust
totally
me, bro.
talked
I
to
got
him.
this, bro.
Oh, so there's
You
that.
whispered in
But
my
if like
ears, bro.
but if we're like
Yeah.
if we're taking that by if
Um.
we're taking it as gospel, then it's like, okay, in terms of these women, like I'm sure they like I know a lot of people like Handmaid's Tale, so that could be good. And the 100 does have like a lot of action in it. And Bones was pretty good, and I've heard, good things about like the other, and I've heard
Yeah.
good things about Bridgerton. Like she can do period stuff, not exactly the correct period that we're going for with this, but you know what? It's a period piece. And so, like I'm sure that those credits are great and they'll maybe even bring those fans to here, and then they can like they're like, okay, let's do something totally different. We're big Wonder Woman fans, let's do it. But even then, like I have like my, I don't want
Yeah.
to trust everything, I don't want to trust
Yeah.
totally fucking
It's
everything, and I
yeah.
don't want to be like kowtowing to like, oh yes, James Gunn, he can do no wrong. He has done plenty wrong. I mean, have you seen Super? Pretty terrible movie. So, it's like a whole rigmarole in terms of, you know, all of this. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of information that's dubious. So I want it to be good. It sounds like a really fucking cool idea. I just have my own personal thoughts on it, but like, you know what? I'm a fan. I'm not working in the industry, so I have no say on anything. I could just complain about it on the internet, and that's the best I can do. So I'm sure, like, if this is correct, they would do a good job, or whoever they do get will do a good job. I'm just saying, like, personally, I want like heavy Greek mythology. I want like Percy Jackson and the Olympians kind of vibes. Not the quality of that show, because I heard it was very bad, but I would like kind of like that vibe, like that, like kind of like serious, but also
Yeah.
like feeding into the more mythical
Yeah.
ideas and like
Yeah. No,
magic.
it's
I want it to be heavy
larger
on
than life.
magic. I want it to be like
Yeah.
Excalibur. That would be fucking great, but that's just my personal opinion.
I can definitely get on board with that idea. I think, and that's something that they will most likely try to do. And also, at the same time, we got to remember, just kind of stepping back a little bit more. O'Shea mentioned this earlier. Remember, guys, James Gunn has not revealed the entirety of Chapter One of
Yes.
the DCU, what they're calling Gods and Monsters. They said that was just Part One of Chapter One. And obviously, and since then, we have also heard news like Teen Titans. There's a new movie being developed and written by Ana Neguera, who wrote the script that is going to be used for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. So
Hmm.
there's projects like Teen Titans, as well as projects like not just Waller, but like Waller was part of the slate announcement. But there's like other TV shows and animated, like there's a Blue Beetle animated TV series. There's other spin-offs that we haven't even heard of potentially that are still in development. So it's out there. There's other options to look into,
I
and
wanted
things that
to,
we don't know yet and not
yeah,
aware of yet. So
but yeah, I wanted to grab
sorry, go
JB's
ahead.
comment. This is a good theory because Kumail Nanjiani could also be really good as this. He wouldn't be cast as Booster Gold. He would be cast as Skeets, which is the little robot that like Booster Gold has. I think that would be even more perfect casting. I think he could do Booster Gold very well, but I feel like he could definitely hold the vibe of Skeets. I know this is kind of, deterring what we're trying to talk about, but like I feel like this was just a really good comment. And somebody
So,
also mentioned that like don't do Percy Jackson. It's
but
for kids,
it's
which,
done
like, I
really
get. Like, obviously, we don't
well.
want this to be
But
like
like,
a kid's
okay,
show. I meant like Percy
the
Jackson in
tone,
terms of the
right,
mythology vibe, not like
right,
the story or anything, just like the
right.
mythology and like mythical side. That's like kind of the vibe I want. Obviously, more adult because it's going to be an adult show, very dark adult show. So, obviously, Percy Jackson, but for adults. Let's go with that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so don't worry. I don't want like a kiddie show for this. So don't worry. We're good.
No, no, we are on the same page. I think we want something that's gonna be Game of Thrones esque, but like more elevated, and like you said, even goes a step or two above in terms of the larger than life, like whether it's magic or like just like the warrior princess. Like just I think a lot of what they got right in the DCEU, they can continue and build on, and except do it on an even bigger scale, and then provide us a story that doesn't necessarily center
Mhm.
around Wonder Woman because why not? Like thousands of years in the past, and then we have Diana Prince enter the picture down the road. Now there is another story I wanted to get into before we finish up. This is from I think DC Film News posted this on their socials, and that's where we found it. Of course, it's, originally the quote is from an Esquire article where Zoe Kravitz was being interviewed recently. I believe she's promoting her new movie, the one that she's directing. Blink, is it Blink Twice? The one with Channing Tatum, right? That's set to
I
come out
have
soon.
no fucking clue. I'm the wrong
It's
person to
it's
ask.
so. By the way, Jay Kelly's like, dude, is Booster Gold. We have to accept it. I mean,
I'm accepting
you
it.
know what? If
I'll take both. I will take Booster Gold
Kumail
or
Nanjiani
Sneaks.
as Booster Gold,
I'm cool. I'm cool with it. You don't have,
yes,
you're not hearing any shit from me. I'm just saying that's kind of an interesting idea. Like, oh, he could be Skeets. I think that would be more perfect, but like Booster Gold, that's like also really good. Like I would not mind. I know everyone has like a hate boner for Kumail Nanjiani, and they're all racist. No, I'm just kidding. But I think he would be a very good choice for that role, and I'm accepting it. If that is the case, if that's like, oh, Peter Safran signed the papers, Kumail Nanjiani signed the papers, James Gunn signed the papers, boom, 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 we're getting it. And the Nexus Point News was totally right about it. Jolo was an idiot and actually did let it slip. Then I'll accept it. I'm cool with it.
yeah. Trust me,
You're
bro.
not going to hear
He's
any
in there.
deterrence from me. I just want to say that. Especially if they're hanging out with Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel, and we're going to get a fucking
And Peter
DC
Safran.
hard. If we're finally
Oh,
getting Mike Flanagan's
yeah.
Clayface movie, I totally forgot about that. Mike Flanagan was writing a Joker-esque villain movie about Clayface, and I'm like, yes, give it to me. But the Warner Brothers at the time, with their revolving door of CEOs, was like, no. And I'm like, why would you fucking say no to Mike Flanagan? That's like saying no to Jesus. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So, like, maybe this is even more hope that we'll get that Clayface movie. So let's fucking go. But that's just hope. That's a hope. That's the hopeful Mike Flanagan fan in me. But I'll just take Kumail Nanjiani for now. But like also James Gunn, please give us more Mike Flanagan projects. If they are DC or not DC, give us more Mike Flanagan projects.
And with that convincing plea, I think James Gunn will agree. But and O'Shea, I think we were talking in the chat. You mentioned, with the tone of Paradise Lost, what would they want it to be a little more campy, considering what the Superman that we're getting? He wears his underoos on top. But yeah, I mean, and O'Shea responded, we could just be just saying that the type of content we're getting, like Peacemaker, The Authority, Creature Commandos, and maybe even Superman, maybe a Percy Jackson wide might work, and of course with Booster Gold would fit in the same kind of thing. But at the same time, I will say James Gunn has iterated this on multiple occasions that just because certain characters are more on the comic, funny side, more campy side, doesn't mean everything the DCU is going to be very campy and comic, relief kind of thing. We're gonna get a Batman movie, and that Batman movie will have a darker tone because that's what the character Batman is. I think it's, again, going back to the DCAU, the animated shows and movies, is a good example of how you can sort of mix and match the different tones and characters and still get an end result that works. Now, with that said, speaking of Batman, speaking of something a little bit darker, Zoe Kravitz, of course, she was being interviewed by Esquire promoting her new movie Blink Twice, which is coming out soon, and it's a movie that she's directing. So I don't know if it's a directorial debut or not, but it's certainly as an up and coming director, it's going to be a big project for her, and hopefully we can go out and check it out. We're going to review it on the channel, but in the meantime, she was interviewed by Esquire, and one of the questions she was asked was about the Batman 2. When is it coming out? Is she going to be involved? And I think she gave a pretty simple answer. I think Matt Reeves is writing it right now, and that's about as much as she wanted to give away. I do believe there's a pattern between what she said here and what John Cena said. Is again, that's the only Peacemaker question I can answer right now. James Gunn has got this whole thing on lock. Like, he wants to make sure they're not leaking like they used to in the past with the DCU, where every other Harley and Joker project that was in development there was a breaking news and Deadline, a Hollywood Reporter, Variety was talking about it. It seems like they're trying to really curb that kind of leaking happening where people are just randomly talking about every idea they've pitched to the studio. So we know they've been pretty tight-lipped about the Batman too. But I wanted to kind of take this, question that Zoe Kravitz was posed in that Esquire article and just kind of use that as a means to ask you, do you think Catwoman even has a role to play in Batman Part Two? Do you think Zoe Kravitz will return? Do you think she even knows whether she's going to be a part of? Because obviously, the story of the movie we now know, the second Batman movie is going to pick up right where the Penguin series leaves off, and the Penguin series picks up like a week after the first movie finishes up. So it's not like they're skipping forward 5 years. So we know that Catwoman is sort of going off to a different city to do her thing, but obviously Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is
Mhm.
still around.
I
Does that mean that Zoe Kravitz is her character Catwoman, Selena Kyle, is gonna get pulled back into the mess of Gotham City, or is she just gonna be
I
in like a recurring character? Like, what's her involvement gonna even be like in this new Batman
I
movie?
I guess it just comes down to what we'll expect with the Penguin, how long the Penguin is going to take. Because is the Penguin just going to be another week? Like it's just going to be those 10 episodes and it's just going to be like, oh, yep, another week has gone by. And then 2 weeks have gone by since the first one. It's like, all right. But if months go by, because then if that's the case, then Catwoman definitely would not show up again. But if it's like, okay, this is going to be a couple months, like, or at least at the very least a couple weeks. I think that's a
Right,
little bit more likely that she
the
would come
rise of
back. Like
Oswald Cobblepot.
she
Yeah,
does, like if it's like a couple months or even like a year over the course of this 10 episodes. I don't think it's gonna be a year, but like I would say like
you know what's
maybe a couple
interesting?
weeks
Isn't she
or a
like
month.
the stepsister of Sophia Falcone?
She would be the half
Given
sister.
the half sister. Okay. So if she's the half sister, do you think there's a chance that Zoe Kravitz has a cameo in this HBO TV series? Because
Unlikely.
she's no stranger to HBO TV shows and movies. So I mean, and obviously she's part of this universe. So I'm just saying, story wise, do you think she comes into play? Because if you're talking about splitting the wealth of the Falcones, the big part of the first movie was that Zoe Kravitz, Catwoman, Selena Kyle has a stake in there. Like she should be getting some. I mean, although I mean it's the way it's played out. Obviously, she's needs to take her part rather than be given
Right.
it. But I'm just wondering, like politics of the show. Do you think she will figure into the Penguin itself,
I
even
don't
before we
think
get to the
so.
Batman too?
She might be a surprise cameo because I know they already confirmed that Robert
Yeah,
Pattinson is showing up at some point, whether he's Bruce Wayne or Batman at the beginning, middle, or end.
yeah,
So she might be like a surprise cameo if they do have her, and with that, she might like factor in like a major part of the plot. Because if they haven't mentioned Zoe Kravitz at all, she is either it's either one of two extremes, either totally not in it, or let's not. Anyway, but or she's like totally in it. She's gonna have a major factor into the plot, and it's gonna be like a total surprise. That's why they haven't released it. I'm leaning towards she's probably not in it. She's gonna be referenced, but that's it. And I agree with JB.
yeah.
She's necessary. She could be in it, maybe as like a reference or something, but like in terms like he's trying to grow, and I feel like he's like trying to be more hopeful, and I feel like that's straying away what Catwoman is as a character. Yeah, she said she was heading to Blood. I mean, she could always come back to Gotham, but like after like the
Yeah,
flood, why the fuck would you want to come back to Gotham? But anyway, um
right.
I think I don't think she's gonna be in it, like in the Penguin or the Batman Part Two. Maybe like a small cameo, like at the end of the movie, at the very most. But I don't think she's going to be in it personally.
Yeah, and interesting to see though the connections are there. I mean, you cast Zoe Kravitz. I mean, obviously we see actors, A-list actors cast for major roles in movies all the time where it's just a one-off. But considering that this is a franchise, I'd imagine that they didn't give her character that open-ended ending to her story and her arc in the first movie, only to be like we forget about her, especially considering it's Catwoman. I know that in the DCU we're going to be getting obviously Batman and Damian Wayne and stuff, so maybe Talia al Ghul and whatever else comes of that. But as far as love interests go, I mean, from the animated series, all the way to Cape Crusader, Batman and Catwoman, have forever had a romance that is on and off, and have seen many iterations of it. I'd imagine that if they are going the route of, she's sort of just comes and goes in and out of Bruce Wayne's life, and even in The Dark Knight Rises, of course, you had Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, sort of like they went off into the distance at the end of the movie. My guess is that Zoe Kravitz will have a part to play. However, how big it is, that's questionable. Considering that the story was she was pretty central to the story in the Batman, but how central she is to the new movie, I mean, it would be pretty repetitive if she had the same kind of role to play.
Yeah.
So, but hey, you know what? At the very least, we know that Zoe Kravitz continues to be involved in this franchise in some way or another. And regardless of how big of a role she has to play, she's still being asked about it. So there's that. Um, JB's just never mind. Okay, he's making a Simpsons joke in the chat. I don't know if I want to address it. But O'Shea's also, I think O'Shea's got a good point that maybe if she shows up, she could come have a upgraded costume, and we could see her like she's still doing a heist and trying to make a living that way, whereas Batman obviously has moved on. Oh, JB's like, he watched the Continental. The actor looks exactly like Robert Pattinson. The whole time I was watching that show, I could think, if they need to replace Batman, here's the guy. Hey, you know what? One day they'll cast another Batman. Hell, they might need to cast a Batman. They still need to cast a Batman for the DCU. Maybe that ends up being, our man from the Continental TV series. But in the meantime, guys, we did start off by talking about Peacemaker. So ultimately, the central story that we wanted to touch upon at the start of the show, and that we did talk about, if you joined us late, Be Kind Rewind, check that out. And the story was John Cena recently was asked on the red carpet for Jackpot, his new movie coming out on Amazon Prime. It debuted at the TCL Chinese Theater in LA back when Star Wars, the same theater that Star Wars debuted at in 1977. And he was asked about, hey, what's going on with the Peacemaker TV show? Can you tell us anything about it? Any updates? And John Cena simply said, hey, they're shooting it right now. Next year is when it's set to come out. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he basically said next year is what he's thinking. That's all I can say about Peacemaker. And of course, Zoe Kravitz later is asked about, hey, what's going on with the Batman 2? And she's like, hey, Matt Reeves is writing it right now. Part of it probably is both of these actors they're talking about a different project, and they're being asked about, what their connection is to a DC project. And so they're probably like trying to stay on point and just talk about the project they're there to promote. Part of it is likely that, hey, James Gunn is just saying, we got to keep this stuff on lock. We do not want to get any leaks out about whether story details or when something is coming out. We don't want to make any promises to the fans that we cannot keep. He's big on the idea of, we're going to commit to a release date only when we feel comfortable doing it, and then we're going to stick to it, so we don't end up in a situation like what Marvel has had to do with Blade, where Wesley Snipes is like, there's only been one Blade and there'll only ever be one in the movie. And unfortunately, that hits a lot harder than it should have, because for all we know, Marshall, he may never be Blade. But DC doesn't want to be in that same situation. And that said, Peacemaker doesn't have a release date yet, but it's most likely going to be 2025, which tracks. James Gunn is currently directing his 3 episodes of the show, 3 out of the 8 of which it looks like they've probably already shot the majority of. So hopefully we'll get some more behind the scenes photos and then some more news about it, maybe a new trailer, maybe an inside look. I'm excited to see where we go later this fall, once we start getting into that promotional cycle for Superman, which is in post-production. But tomorrow, John, we'll be back talking about Kite Man. Kite Man, hell
Yes.
yeah. Episode 6, is it?
But
I believe, right?
Before we get there, do you want to talk about fan comments first?
Yes, we do. Yes, I almost forgot it. Thank you for the
Yeah,
for the point.
I keep forgetting it, so I'm like, you know what?
know,
It's about time somebody else fucking got it.
It's on me. It's on me. Well, this is JB 1138. You left us a comment about how you'd like to see Sydney Sweeney as Black Canary. Hell yeah, or oh yes, is what you said. Make it so.
Make
it so. Like,
although he did
Patrick
put
Stewart.
the wrong character from the wrong
Did
show.
the wrong
but,
thing.
It works. Okay.
Well, no, Make It So is one of the Star Trek. Like, I think, isn't that?
Well,
what,
that was Jean-Luc.
So Jean-Luc Picard is like, Make It So.
It wasn't, it wasn't
Engage. Make It So.
Spock,
But anyway, she's. I was laughing at this comment for the longest time because, yes, Sydney Sweeney would be a good pick, at least for her looks. I don't know if she fits. Like, does she have the acting chops? I mean, I don't know
I
if
think so.
Madam Web was probably a bad
She
example,
was nominated
but
for an Emmy. Or yeah,
for
she was nominated
Madam
for
Web,
an Emmy. No, she was nominated
okay,
for an Emmy for
well,
Euphoria.
oh,
Yeah, she was in
she
Euphoria.
recently did like this horror movie. Yeah, oh, no,
Yeah.
no, no, she was. No, I'm yeah, totally. I think she would
So
fit the timeline in terms of like the age and of course she's got the looks for the job. And as far as her acting ability goes, I don't know like what they're going for with the movie. But obviously they've already cast her in one comic book film before, so she probably checks a lot of the boxes. Certainly, if you're going with Power Girl, which I know JB why you put those emojis in there, get your head out of the gutter. But hey, I think
I mean, I think she would be good as both,
it's a
but
it's a good
preferably Black
it's
Canary.
it's,
Get
it's
like
yeah,
Alice Eve for Power Girl. I think that would be better.
yeah. I think I would prefer that myself. Now there was another comment, JB again. You watch the show and you leave comments as you do. We love you for doing that. John, you want to read this one out for us?
Yeah, with John also declaring the new animated Watchmen as a dog shit laughing emoji. I'm wondering if he could start rating things he did not like with a 1 to 5 dog shits rating system. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that. But the thing is, here's the thing. I haven't actually watched Watchmen Chapter 1. I know it got released today. So
Mm-hmm.
I obviously I can't judge it. I haven't watched it. I don't plan on watching it. I'm just saying it looked not great. I didn't like the animation style, and it just feels like it has no reason to exist. And I've heard that the reviews are not very good. But like, maybe it's the greatest thing ever. I don't know, but I have no interest in watching it. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, hey, the best iteration of Watchmen, in my opinion, is the Zack Snyder movie. I mean, certainly if you go
yeah,
by
pretty
his
much.
director's cut, I enjoyed that one the most.
Or even
Although
the
I think
ultimate
the
cut. I've
TV show
heard
that
like the ultimate cut is like that's because it has the Tales of the Black Freighter comic. That was in the ultimate cut, so that was like the most complete
yeah.
version.
And to be fair, I think the TV show that did on HBO was pretty darn good. I just don't know if it was. I don't know if it was as definitive as people maybe thought it would be. And John, I think you just passed me along some news. Let's see if we can touch upon this before we finish up. Like, what is
Yes,
is this something with the Batman?
it's
Let's see.
just like
While we're
confirming like
alive.
characters who they are played. We got confirmation on who Michael Kelly's playing, and then and then a couple other characters, Alberto Falcone and Milo Grappa, who they're being played as. Because I know that some of the characters were a little bit of a mystery. So obviously we
Mhm,
got like this is confirmed, like Sophia Falcone. Obviously that is
mhm.
Kristen Milioti. Very much they very much misspelled many names, but that's okay. Um,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure she
there's an
has an
E at the
E
end.
in a
There's
bunch
an
of them.
E.
Anyway, but
Yeah.
Michael Zegan as Alberto Falcone. He is I don't know who that is in terms of the actor, but I know like Alberto
He's in the
Falcone
Falcone family, the
he's gonna be
crime
a
family.
major
Yeah.
character in there. Then Johnny Vitti, that's who Michael Kelly is playing. So I think he works for one of the families, like Falcone or Maroni. I forget which one, but yeah, he's working with them. And yeah, I think he's just like kind of an advisor, right hand man type of character. So yeah, that's interesting. And then the last one is like I've never heard of this character. Was Milo Grappa. Never heard of him. So we'll see how that is. I don't know the actor and I don't know the character. So yeah,
I mean,
sorry, I can't really
it
have.
seems like yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like he's just probably just gonna do some of the dirty work maybe for with one of the crime families. He's probably
Yeah,
just
he
the
definitely has
enforcer.
that
That
vibe.
I mean, at least the look of the character feels like he's like an enforcer type character, not anything else. But yeah, hey, we'll see how this plays out. This is great. We're getting more details. I mean, it's coming out soon.
Mhm.
It's going to start airing on September 19th. It's got 8 episodes, and you can see it on Max, the streaming service, or HBO, depending on which you subscribe to, or if you have both. It depends on how you decide to watch it. Whether you will watch it when it airs, or you just want to click onto it after the fact. September 19th. I don't remember what day of the week that is, but which, if it is during the week, we'll review it. If it happens to be on the weekend, then we will review it on the Monday following the airing of each episode. So we'll be following that on DC Daily. Each episode we'll review it, much like we will be reviewing Hype Man Hell Yeah. One thing I did want to point out, DC Film News, they've done a good job of just sort of have this pinned to their section here on their social media feeds. One of the extras on the Superman set was diagnosed with moya cerebrovascular disease, which requires brain surgery, and her family have set up a GoFundMe to cover her, the unforeseen medical expenses, which I can't even imagine, how stressful a time that must be for the whole family, especially for the extra herself, who is going through this surgery and the whole recovery process. Hopefully everything goes well. But if you are on DC Film News' Threads account, you can click onto the GoFundMe link there. We will try to include that in one of our episode descriptions as well. But hey, we are in the DC family. We stick by each other, and so we look out for each other. If you've been an extra on the set of DC movie, you're part of the family just as much as anybody who is the lead character in that movie. And James Gunn doing a great job of highlighting that himself. So, hey, with that said, as I was mentioning earlier, with Hype Man Hell Yeah, episode 6, we'll give that a review, and then we'll be following any other DC news that breaks in the meantime. John, as always, it's been a pleasure. We will see you back here on another episode of DC Daily tomorrow and the day after on Friday. O'Shea, JB, Fiona, Kazoo, Jay Kelly, good to see you live. We usually see you in the comment section. Everybody else who, if you've been watching, if I forgot to shout out your name, Hunter Iggy, thanks for joining us. It's been fantastic, as always, to have you watching the show. And we'll see you back here with another episode of DC Daily tomorrow. Until then, go watch Peacemaker Season 1. Season 2 is on the way.
Go watch Kite Man.
Yes, Kite Man Hell Yeah. Catch up for episode 6 tomorrow. All right, John, we'll see you tomorrow.